Ready on the set? Let's try this again.
I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take 2. I get bullied for a living every day, rain or shine. Whether I'm feeling good or like today when I think I have the flu and I'm stuck in bed, I get paid to be harassed, to handle angry comments from people who hate my hair, who hate my eyebrows, who hate my voice, who hate my ideas, who hate the fact that I exist. It is what I do for a living. I am a social media content creator. And I have to be honest, my job satisfaction rating is at about 0 right now. And if I had known what I was signing up for, I don't think that I would have ever gotten into it. But I didn't know. It was kind of uncharted territory when I got started back during the pandemic. It's not like I had some training course and a boss that told me what to expect. I had an app on my phone, I had a little microphone and a camera, and I was just doing what other people out there were doing. And I didn't realize the hatred that I was going to receive. You guys, I have lived on these lollipops for like the past 24 hours. My stomach hurts so bad. This is the first time I've been out to the kitchen since yesterday. Now, before I started content producing, I had had social media. Like everybody else, I had a MySpace for a little bit. I had a Facebook and an Instagram. And then during the pandemic, I started on TikTok. And honestly, I didn't realize how terrible my job was until I started working with this donut client recently for their social media management. And unlike my content, producing for a donut shop is just all about sprinkles and frosting and happiness. And I've started to see back to back the difference between sprinkles and icing and happiness and what I do. And I realized that by engaging in really important conversations that need to be talked about, religious overreach, women's rights, I'm choosing misery for myself, and it is breaking me. I need a life of sprinkles. That's really all I can handle. It's crazy looking back at my life, how much things didn't work out the way that I thought that they would. October 2018 was supposed to be the beginning of a whole new life for me. Just 3 years prior, I had found out that my Mormon returned missionary husband, whose screen name is Jake, had had a double life that had included adultery and illegal behaviors that absolutely rocked my world and rocked our family. Because I was a stay-at-home mom and had nowhere to go, I wasn't able to leave him. But I was hopeful that we could come to a place where he could get past all of his problems, get some help, and we could keep our family together. So after separating for a couple of years and living in completely different states, me up in Utah and him in my home state of Arizona, I decided to reconcile with him and move back to Arizona. And I wrote in my diary about how happy I felt that we had gone through so much together and were about to heal this rift in our family. And I wrote that I was so happy to have Sunday dinners again, because it had been really hard to be a single mom all on my own, and just the ups and downs with my kids. And there was something magical in my head about going to church and then walking in the door afterwards to that smell of the pot roast and onions in the crock pot. And I had this vision in my mind of my kids sitting down at our beautiful table with their dad. That Sunday dinner is why I did everything that I did to reconcile with Jake, outside of just the fact that I was completely financially dependent on him, but I did definitely have emotional buy-in. That was my life take 2, or at least it was supposed to be. Instead, within just a couple days of moving in with Jake, I realized that he had problems that I hadn't been able to see because of the long distance separation that we'd had for about 2.5 years. And he became violent with me and our children within just a couple days. So I had left home, all of my friends, my sister, everything, moved back to Gilbert, Arizona, moved in with him. And from the very beginning, It was a nightmare. Now, looking back and just reading through my diaries and scrolling through old Facebook memories and stuff, the glue that kept me together throughout all of this time was my faith in the Mormon church and my family. I knew that I was going through hard things for a reason, that they were teaching me lessons, that God was testing me, and I leaned into my ward and my faith and going to the temple, reading my scriptures, listening to like my old EFY songs from way back in high school and singing hymns. I leaned into those things to keep me going through all the hard stuff that I was going through. And one Sunday morning, me and Jake woke up, we took our showers, we got ready for church, and off we went, fully believing, or at least I was, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And by the end of that 3 hours in church, I would walk away from 44 years, 5 generations on one side, 7 generations all the way back to Joseph Smith on the other side of Mormonism. 2 weeks later, I would catch Jake with the 19-year-old escort. He hadn't changed. Nothing was different. He had just learned to hide it better. And that night, my marriage ended. Escaping domestic violence is the single hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, and I've done really hard things in my life. It's the most vulnerable thing that a woman can go through, trying to protect children when I have absolutely no resources. If you've seen any of my videos or read my Substack or anything before, you know that within 4 days of my marriage ending, I was unable to buy groceries for my kids. Within 10 months, I would be homeless while he had a high 6-figure income. I'd be sleeping in my car with this little GoFund on my phone that I would just text to friends, and my friends were dwindling. As I left the Mormon church, I was ghosted by literally everyone. I remember even in my condo before I was evicted and was sleeping in my car, people that just stopped talking to me. Just one day getting a text from Natalie is her name in Raven Ranch, just simply saying, like, we don't need you in the carpool. I've never heard from her again. That's the last text. I asked why, and I need the carpool because now I'm working and going through all this hard stuff, and never heard from her again. I was ghosted by everybody. Straight away, my mom would tell me that I was under the influence of Satan, and that was really, that period of time was the last time that I had a relationship with my mom at all. In May 2 years ago, one of the little letters on my board over there, I just keep it hanging up. My mom wrote me a letter, put a stamp on it, paid money to mail it to me, telling me that I am no longer her daughter. So everything that I went through, living in my car, having COVID, being in the hospital for months and months, almost losing my life to a ruptured colon 2 years ago, brain injuries that would give me chronic seizures, many strokes, leaving me completely homebound and bedbound. I went through that utterly, completely alone, except for my new boyfriend, Kevin, who I had met at the Costco gas station, and my kids. I haven't talked a lot about it on my YouTube, but the post-separation abuse from my ex was horrifying, being just hit by his car in the parking lot as I was walking away. The creepy stuff that he'd do, breaking into my house while I was gone with the kids, taking pictures inside my underwear drawer. I had some condoms in my top drawer. We'd been divorced for 6 months when he went into my home while I was away and opened it up and took photos inside my underwear drawer and took photos inside my fridge and other places. And I went through all of that alone and with my whole world turned upside down because I no longer had the sense that Heavenly Father held me in his hand. Now, I did attend a Christian church immediately, a week after leaving the Mormon church. But mainstream Christianity does not have the community, and it doesn't have the answers to the afterlife that Mormonism does. And at some point during the pandemic, when I was critically ill, and my boyfriend, who had turned into my fiance, who had turned into my long-term committed life partner, was worried that I was not going to survive. I was finally diagnosed with the anoxic brain injury that I had sustained during my attempted unaliving during my divorce. And would begin treatment, which got me back on my feet. But that would take a long, long time. And again, going through all of this alone. And sometime during that pandemic, this new app called TikTok came out, and my kids, who were always trying to find ways to entertain me when I was just in bed 24/7, day after day, week after week, month after month, put that on my phone. And they were like, hey, the algorithm's going to figure out what you like, and pretty soon you're going to have all these little mini videos that you can watch, and they'll keep you entertained. So don't get bored, Mom. And that app on my phone would change my life, literally in every way possible. And in some ways, very positive. The movie that I'm working on right now with Emmy-nominated producers who are just some of the most incredible, kind people that I've ever met. The book deal that, fingers crossed, hopefully I have here. Everything that I currently do for work is because my 9-year-old son put TikTok on my phone. My daughter showed me how to use it. And I know they put it on there just because they wanted me to watch videos. They never expected me to make anything. And then one day I did. I did a little video about how the Mormon church had made me be unemployed and homeless because they told me to be a stay-at-home mom. And I was just obeying the commandments. And so here I was, living in my uncle's abandoned guest house with a brain injury, unable to buy anything to eat, unable to put gas in my car because I had followed the prophet. And as I began to pioneer this ex-Mormon movement on TikTok, it opened up community for me that I couldn't have had in any other way, especially during the pandemic when everything was shut down. And especially for me with my horrific life-threatening health conditions, I could have never met the people that I needed in my life right then if it hadn't been for that app, which in a way is kind of cool, but in a way is just heartbreaking that social media became my family, because I don't have family. I have nobody. I have hundreds of family members who I have not seen since I left the Mormon church. My children have not had grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins since we left the Mormon church. Here's how I produced my content in the beginning. I was so sick and I was like in and out of the hospital all the time and things like that. But I would basically just sleep all day, sometimes on the tile floor, sometimes on our leather couch. And then I would get up and take a shower and put on some makeup and put on like a cute t-shirt, and I could just stand long enough to shoot a video. And then I would sleep, and then edit and post that video, and then do the same thing again the next day. I was TikTok living from the hospital during COVID, from the ICU when they thought that I was going to die. I was TikToking everywhere I went. And like I say, at first it opened up that ex-Mormon community for me, and it opened up this world where I saw that I wasn't the only woman whose life had been financially destroyed by marriage and who had emotional scars from domestic violence. I connected with people in ways that I never had before. And then it started to make me a little bit of money. And then it got to the point where I was paying my rent with it. And because of my illnesses, I can't just go get a job. I can't work in an office. I can't do physical labor. I can't be exposed to chemicals. I can't even completely depend that I'm going to get out of bed every day. But I was able to shoot content from home, help women around the world, and pay my rent. So social media opened up a financial door for me that I don't know how otherwise I would have been able to open. But unfortunately, social media has a dark side. And honestly, it's because of those like buttons and the share buttons and then the stitch and the duet and the comments. Like, let's take somebody else who is on screen. I don't know, like Marilyn Monroe or Ricky Schroeder or Tom Selleck, or, you know, people whose faces would be in our living rooms. Back when I was a kid, I was born in 1974. I had no way to get a hold of Tom Selleck. I think I belonged to a Ricky Schroeder fan club for a couple years, and I would a couple times a year write a letter on my My Little Pony stationery, ask my mom for a stamp and mail it off to the fan club, and months later get a little postcard that said thanks for writing to Ricky Schroeder's fan card. But there was really no way that I could contact him. It's not like when Magnum PI was on, there was somewhere where I could comment about Tom Selleck's shorts are too short and his mustache is too bushy. We didn't have that feedback loop that's built into social media. That's why it's called social media. And I personally have been bullied and harassed from the very get-go on my social media, and I just simply can't do it anymore. It's really sad looking back on like trying to escape domestic violence and dealing in real time with like phone conversations with my ex-husband where he's taking me back to court and he's threatening to unalive me in phone calls. And then I'm doing social medias about the Mormon church or the temple or garments or whatever. And so I get in my TikTok and I have hundreds of messages from people just telling me that I'm a worthless piece of shit and my eyebrows are crooked and my boobs are sagging and I have stupid hair and a stupid shirt and stupid everything. And I had just no more safe spaces in my life because of what this invention that I don't think that we know how to cope with yet brought into my life and into so many people's lives, and like so many other women, because social media is huge for women. It allows us access to like the TikTok shop and Amazon affiliates and different things like that, that for women who don't have the same access to, or haven't had the same access to education and climbing the career ladder as the men out there, TikTok is such a female friendly space. And a lot of my other TikTok creator friends who are female have also been bullied and harassed. And we open up our phones to the inappropriate pictures and we say one wrong thing and it just spreads around the world. And people in the past whose faces were on screens, they didn't have that feedback loop. They didn't have the comments. I'm sure that Tom Selleck could like open up the paper and see, oh yeah, people didn't like that episode, but he didn't hear the voices of all of the people out there. For me in the beginning, I really felt like I was part of a movement and I was doing something. I was helping women, I was helping ex-Mormons, I was helping anybody in a religious deconstructing space. And I do have to say that when the bullying and the harassment and just constant like percolating in this negative space of Mormonism that I hadn't been part of for 2 or 3 years, and an ex-husband who had restraining orders who I never saw and never heard from, just still having to talk about and think about that for content started to really weigh on me. But then I got to the point where I was making the money and I couldn't walk away from it. And honestly, that was maybe about 2 years ago when I started to say, I get bullied for a living. I wake up every morning to people who hate me, people who are stitching and duetting and telling me I'm stupid. And I literally get paid to endure this hatred. And if I don't, then I can't buy groceries for Brody and I can't put gas in my car. And the sad thing for me is I don't have another option. Just in the past couple months, I've been on live podcasts with people just attack. And then some podcasts where a lot of people are supportive, but then afterwards I get hate. When Mormon content creator Jacob Hansen did a video of me, I fielded comments across all of my platforms about what a despicable piece of shit I am. I engaged in a podcast with another ex-Mormon content creator who then sexually harassed me for weeks and weeks. I was receiving, no explicit photos, but shirtless, topless. He called them boudoir photos where he was oiled up in really provocative positions. I would be laying in bed at 10 o'clock at night with my phone dinging and this man sending me photos. And then when I told him, please stop it, and I connected with a couple of other friends who had also been sexually harassed, then he blew up at me and I had this campaign of hatred against me that was absolutely terrifying. And the thing that I can't stop thinking about all the time is younger girls, like the 18, 19, 22-year-olds that are on social media that are dealing with this, because I'm a 50-year-old grandma and I have my partner who helps me kind of process through some of the comments and DMs and who's always here for me. I can't imagine if I was a college girl putting myself out there with the hatred, this pure raw hatred and disgustingness that happens on social media. I don't know why we as a society think that this is okay. Anyway, it is no longer okay for me. So I am taking a break. I don't know what that looks like. I need to find a part-time remote job to replace the income from my social media. I can't do this anymore. Specifically, I no longer want to talk about the Mormon Church, which I hate, which is just a despicable shape-shifting institution that has destroyed so many lives. And I haven't been part of it for 7 years, and I'm stuck listening to conference talks and reading the Book of Mormon and keeping up on everything they do because I'm an ex-Mormon content creator, and I don't think that that's healthy for me anymore. And talking about my ex-husband and the things that I went through this week, I got out my diaries for one of my YouTubes, and just being in that space of reading how I met Jake sent me into panic attacks the rest of the afternoon. And the thing is, I could burn that diary myself. I probably won't, but I could stop thinking about anything. I have a beautiful partner. My children are safe. I am 100 miles away from Jake. I never have to think his name again, except for my social medias. And honestly, I'm tired of my face being on people's screens. I'm tired of people feeling like they own me. For all of those that I connect with that are so kind, and whether we all agree on the same opinions or not, having conversations and dialogues and being able to engage with people is so amazing. But it's like the poop in the brownie pan. There's poop in the brownie pan. I just can't eat the brownies. About 2 months ago, I was sitting out at my table in the living room editing one of my videos that I could post it, working on the thumbnail, and I had a seizure. Went and laid down for a little bit, called my friend Beth, got right back to work because my content creation schedule is so tight. I had to keep chugging out videos. I couldn't even take the afternoon off. Last night, Kevin and I drove 2 hours up to Gilbert to have dinner with his kids, and I sat at Joe's barbecue just bawling my eyes out because I was being bullied and harassed on my social medias. It follows me everywhere I go, and I'm no longer choosing happiness by swimming in this cesspool of people who have access to me. So I have privatized my TikTok with my 400,000 followers, deleted all of my YouTube scripts off my computer because I didn't want to be tempted to produce them. And I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to heal. I'm going to rip off the rearview mirror of Mormonism and of Jake. And I'm going to try to go as long as I can without ever saying the name Jake again. I've been producing daily content, except some of my major surgeries when I was out for a couple days, for most of 5.5, almost 6 years. And I can't do it anymore. So thank you, everyone who has been here, who's engaged in respectful conversation. We need to figure something out to make social media safe for humans. And that just simply starts with us. Honestly, sometimes I wish that this would just all go away so that we would turn off our phones and go out into the streets again and meet our neighbors and do stuff like we used to do in the 80s. I always ask my followers if they could move anywhere, where would they move? Italy, Sweden, Australia. And my answer is 1986. I would go back to 1986 before these devices took over our world. Anyway, it is time for me to actually move forward and start living my life. Take 2. Bye, guys.